members of Congress are like, yo, bro, what's up? That's
It's
not what you're
it's
here
like, bro,
for.
just give me the cash. How's that sound? How about you spend less time worrying about messaging and more time cutting me checks?
Good morning, I'm Anna Palmer.
And I am Jake Sherman.
And welcome to the Daily Punch, brought to you by Punchbowl News. It's Tuesday, January 13th, 2026. Let's get into the mix. Here are your Washington headlines of the day. Number one, how Trump economics is changing America. Number two, frontliners erupt at the DNC chair. And number three, we've got the latest on government funding and war powers ahead of the congressional recess. All right, Jake, let's get to it. We are leading Punchbowl News AM with a very smart top this morning, looking at how Trump is single-handedly focused across many different areas on policies that are U.S. focused right now that have massive implications on the economy, everything from crypto to now credit card fees to tariffs to many other things. And this is having a ripple effect, right, in terms of what corporate America thinks, in terms of what Wall Street is doing. This is Washington and Trump having a ripple effect across the country.
This is our way of zooming out on the Jay Powell situation, because we wrote yesterday in 3 editions, to be honest with you, about how the criminal probe into Jay Powell was backfiring. I think that was our subject line, or it was in our lead, I remember, in the midday edition. But just think about what he's doing right now with big business. Last night, Anna, I know that you've been covering this for about 600 years, which is the credit card swipe fee bill from Roger Marshall and Dick Durbin, which he called on credit card interest rates to be capped at 10% no later than January 20th, which is a week from today, and urged Congress to ban institutional investors from purchasing single-family homes. Talk about deep intervention into the economy, Anna, that you would not expect from a Republican. The Jay Powell probe leaned on Senate banking and ag to advance crypto legislation, rolled out tariffs, including a 25% levy on trade partners with Iran, floated barring Exxon from Venezuela because Trump didn't like the CEO's response. He said he was playing too cute. And also, Anna, Brendan writes about how the president called Elizabeth Warren yesterday after
Probably not typical like phone buddies.
No, and I would imagine that a Trump-Elizabeth Warren meeting of the minds or mind meld is just about as it would send banking lobbyists to the moon, and in a bad way, over her policies that she wants, including a cap on credit card rates. It's just the kind of the funny shape of capitalism, Anna, that capitalism takes under Donald Trump. Because I'm old enough to remember for the last, 16 or 17 years since I've been covering House Republicans and Senate Republicans and the president, the White House's relationship with the legislature and with policy overall, that Republicans said we don't want to pick winners and losers. Frankly, all Trump is doing is picking winners and losers. And I don't mean that in a glib way, and also taking stakes in companies, having the government take stakes in companies. This is not conservative capitalism, conservative economics like we've come to know it over the past, 50 years. Anyway, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it harkens back to early days of his first administration, right? Where you would have him and some of the inclinations to work with Democrats on some of these policies. And you'd have at that point the Kevin McCarthy's of the world trying to pull Trump back, right? Whether you think about immigration reform and other issues. And now with the Elizabeth Warren kind of concept, I mean, the question will be, is this just a moment in time and Trump is trying to kind of put some pressure and find a pathway forward? Or is this going to be a long-held political ideology that he's going to really put the weight of the White House behind it, right? We haven't seen that on a vast majority of issues.
Totally.
It's one thing to say this, and it's another thing to say, okay, we're going to get credit card fees, an issue that, to your point, ever since I've been in Washington has been something that has been debated and has had different people support it and pull back on it. And the kind of the yin and the yang of that fight has continued over time. That is very different, kind of putting out a statement or throwing something into the wind and seeing if it catches, the interest of the public versus actually saying, okay, we're gonna put the muscle of the White House. And if you're a Republican, is this the area that you really want Trump to engage in, or is it healthcare,
No!
or is it, a lot of other things, right?
I say this all the time, making laws takes time, takes discipline, takes a lot of work. And it's easy to, have the board of the Kennedy Center, which you control, slap your name on the Kennedy Center, right? It's easy to do things like that. It's easy to tweet that credit card fees should be capped to 10% in a week because it's a threat that doesn't require Congress. Congress is 535 people, and no president likes it, right? No president likes dealing with Congress. There is kind of it is something that some presidents are good at and relish and want to do. Trump is not really one of those. And because, by the way, he could achieve a lot of these things. This is what it reminds me in like 2017, what Schumer said, Chuck Schumer on a hot mic, which is like Trump could be unstoppable if he goes a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left, a little bit, and confuses people and works with both parties, because that's actually ideologically, historically, I mean, I don't think it's where he is now, but it's where he has been pre-20 15, 16, because he could get these things done, right? There's no president I've ever seen that could have his party abandon their orthodoxy as quickly and successfully as Donald Trump. Anyway, a great top by Brenda.
All right, Jake, let's move on to the number 2 story of the morning. Some news this morning. Vulnerable House Democrats confronted DNC Chair Ken Martin over the committee's anemic fundraising and midterm plans during a heated meeting last month. Per multiple sources with direct knowledge of the incident, Max and Allie have a great scoop here where the DNC trying to help with messaging in putting money towards state parties, and the members of Congress are like, yo, bro, what's up? That's not what you're here for.
Bro, just give me the cash. How's that sound? How's that sound? Open the bank. Stop. You have $12 million in the bank. Or what do they have in the bank? I'm going to look what Allie wrote here. $12.6 million in the bank, and the RNC has 90. How about you spend less time worrying about messaging and more time cutting me checks? How does that sound to you? But no, it's a great item for Max and Allie on the byline. An unstoppable duo where Ken Martin went in there to a meeting of frontliners, and the frontliners were like, dude, you are not helping us win in 2024 or 2026, rather.
2024, whoo.
Yeah, they didn't win in 2024 either. And Martin, a former chair of the DFL, the Democratic Party in Minnesota, defended the DNC's focus on state parties which don't run ads in congressional races but work to bolster voter registration and organizing efforts. But Kristen McDonald-Rivet was miffed, it seems like, about saying that she needs more resources from the DNC, not messaging guidance. It's interesting. The party committees have a difficult time in the era of super PACs, Anna. You know what I mean? And by the way, so does the NRCC and DCCC. The CLF and HMP just could raise much more money. It's much more efficient for the congressional leader to raise them cash than to go raise it for the campaign committee. So this is a kind of a meta issue, but a great job getting inside the room by Max and Allie.
Yeah, I think you make the smart point, right? This is, at the end of the day, these party committees have a much, much harder time. They're much less relevant when it comes to the overall ability to fundraise. But the DNC is in a terrible financial situation. I mean, as they report, the committee took the highly unusual step of taking out a $50 million loan in October of an off year. The biggest fear from Democrats is going to be that they don't have the money to put into these races. They have the momentum. They've got, potentially the policy. They feel like they can win on a lot of different issues. But money matters in these races. Being able to advertise matters. And that frustration clearly boiling over.
Let's put it this way. There are members of the House Democratic caucus who have more money on hand than the DNC. I mean, I'm just thinking of the big fundraisers, like Josh Gottheimer has 20 and a half or almost 21 million in the bank. So work on that.
Maybe they can put their brains together. All right, on that.
maybe Gottheimer will help the DNC raise a bunch of cash. That's good.
We'll see. All right, let's go to the number 3 story of the morning. Funding more powers on the docket ahead of the Senate recess. The Senate is racing to pass a 3-bill funding package and finish processing the Venezuela powers resolution ahead of a scheduled recess. This is going to be a big test, Jake, for Senate Majority Leader John Thune to try to find some cooperation, some time agreements. The clock is ticking when it comes to government funding. January 13th. That deadline is, of course, January 30th. Thune said, we're going to stay here until we get it done. Those are some strong words.
Yeah, well, listen, the funding deadline is what, 17 days away, so they need to stay here. But if they're going to leave next week, they got to figure out how to get some things moving.
Right.
The War Powers resolution came at an inopportune time. Let's put it that way. In the funding process, they need to step on the gas a little bit, and there is a vote-a-rama that comes along with the voting with the War Powers package, which Democrats seem to be kind of saying that they're not going to offer a bunch of amendments just to help speed time, which is very nice of Democrats. Let's just talk for a second about funding. I think just, based on what's happening with ICE in Minneapolis and around the country, I think it's going to be very difficult for Congress to pass a Homeland Security funding bill. I think they're going to have to go to a CR. The House leadership, Republican leadership at least, disagrees with me. Or they don't disagree with me. They say they are working to get a DHS funding package through. They want to attach it to the bill next week. What do I always say? Adding hard things to other hard things does not make any of those hard things easier. Adding a DHS package to a Labor H and THUD spending bill is not going to make that bill easier. In fact, it's going to make it harder. So I think they're going to have to do a CR for Homeland. Could I be wrong? Sure, I could be wrong. I just think that's the reality of it.
All right. Also interesting, a note, a bipartisan group of senators is heading to Denmark on Thursday evening, Jake, amid President Donald Trump's threats to Greenland. Other hotels also planned. So the smell of jet fumes will certainly be permeating Capitol Hill as people want to get out of town as soon as possible. We are going to leave it there. Thanks so much for listening. We appreciate it. If you like the Daily Punch, share it on social media. Tell your friends. It's the best way for folks to find out about us. And of course, you can go deeper on all things Punchbowl News at punchbowl.news. Have a great day. Stay safe, everybody.